100%. Speaking of midfielders, this is the third different story in a week now that's come out. This time it's from another Spanish outlet, Marca, who say that Arsenal have been handed a huge boost in the potential pursuit of Tchouameni because Real Madrid may need to raise funds to sign Mbappe. But it's the third outlet in the week that keeps running the story that Arsenal were looking at him. Do you think it's doable, Jess? Do you think it's a gooner? And I know you don't want to believe in it, but it keeps being printed. Why are these Spanish outlets printing it if there's no chance whatsoever?
Because we're such a gullible fan base and they need them clicks. That's the best thing I could think of. Like, I really just, I don't get it. I don't think that there's like, I think there's probably some truth to it. I don't think journalists can like just make up things. But I do think that it's probably just more Arsenal maybe got in contact, to see if he was available. I know we've been interested in Camavinga as well. And so Real Madrid are looking like maybe they have quite a few midfielders. They're trying to bring in a big player. And so maybe there's an opportunity and maybe Arsenal have looked at that. I'm sure that even maybe Liverpool have looked at that. But to be honest, like I just don't. The only way I see us bringing in another midfielder, period, is if Thomas Partey goes, and I think he's very difficult to move, just because like the wages, everything, So it's one of those where I can't really get too excited about it because I'm sure it's if in the event that Thomas Partey were to go, this is a player that we'd be interested in, but like I'm not about to sit here and act like Tchouameni's coming to Arsenal. Like, I'm sure he's desperate to stay where he's at. I really like that's the move of a lifetime. You don't just give it up because of one season. Even Ancelotti's leaving the season after this coming one. So you'll have an opportunity with a new manager, if it doesn't really work out with Ancelotti. So if I had to give it a percentage, I would say like 10% chance maybe. But, being linked to big players is always nice anyway, because if Arsenal are at least sniffing around, at least I know that they're serious about bringing in great players. I just don't think it's realistic in this window. Sorry.
No, I mean, you've got to say, so I get where you're coming from. I keep saying I think it's a real outside shot, but the clicks thing by the websites, look, no one's clicking on their websites. We're all seeing this news sort of third and fourth hand from aggregators in the UK. It pays. There's no mileage in it really for them to clickbait that. No one's on their websites. Does that make sense? I believe there has to be an element of truth to it as well. They've still got rules about journalism in their country. They can't just make things up out of absolutely nowhere. But I remember when the Onana to Man United deal first came out, it was all by the Italian press. And for like 2 weeks, everybody said it was nonsense. And then suddenly, one by one, the British and the kind of tier one European press started talking about it. And now we're on the edge of it completing. I feel like what you've said. I think there's interest. I think it's all about whether Thomas Partey leaves or not. And I know that people are sort of saying that why would he want to leave? Look, the Mbappe deal, George spoke about it earlier, could be a £200 million deal. You've also got to look at the guy's wages. You've really got to look at the wages of that guy. They anticipate that Mbappe, wherever he goes, is going to get paid £2 million a week, and he has somewhere in the and then you've got his signing on fee inclusive of that, which they put near on 100 million. You're talking about a deal in terms of its total package is hundreds of millions of pounds to bring him in. Whoever buys him, because of FFP, is going to have to sell people. I just think it's important. No one, and the reason, listen, the PSG, they're owned by the Qataris. They've got a monopoly in their country. They've been able to afford doing it through one way, shape, or form. But I'm pretty sure some of the salary of Mbappe is paid not by the club; it will be paid by outside sponsors and everything else. But that's why I believe it might not be Arsenal that get him. I'm just saying I think there's a chance that Tchouameni or maybe one other could leave because the sign in Mbappe is massive. So I'm not saying he goes to Arsenal. I'm saying I think they could have to sell an asset or two because of money. And I don't think he may not end up at Arsenal. He may end up at a Bayern Munich, or he might end up at PSG himself. I don't know. But I think Real Madrid are going to have to sell before they can afford to bring Mbappe in, personally. So, yeah, it's an interesting one for me to see where he ends up. But they keep printing it. Does anyone see? Let's just imagine the story's real and Arsenal want to buy him. Can anybody see Tchouameni wanting to join Arsenal?
I don't know why it would, because like like one assumes he wants to like play like regularly and stuff. Arsenal have just splashed however much on Declan Rice. I'm assuming that Tchouameni would be competing with him for a position. It wouldn't make much sense from Tchouameni's perspective to go, oh, I'm just going to go and try to challenge this 100 million pound signing and this player who's being lauded as Arsenal's a marquee signing or whatever. So I don't think it would make much sense. I also don't think it would make much sense for Arsenal because I think it would be a waste to play Rice and Tchouameni in the same team. So because then you'd be like taking away, someone else in the midfield, whether it's a Odegaard or Havertz or whoever's going to play in the midfield. So
that's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah, so I don't think it works. No, sorry. So I don't think it works on Tchouameni's side. Don't think it works on Arsenal's side, and I don't really get this transfer in this world where we're believing it. I don't understand it.
That's what I was saying. Like Jess, we've spoken about this before, like in terms of obviously having a big squad, you're playing in multiple competitions, including Champions League. But I was saying this to Gavin last week because he was like, look, we need as many players as we can get. But I said, look, Tchouameni's not going to leave Real Madrid to go to a team where he's not guaranteed to play. You just brought in Declan Rice. Honestly, you're not going to pay that much for Havertz. I know you guys obviously have a lot of money, but Arsenal aren't known for spending the amount of money that you have recently, especially on a player like Havertz, to put him on the bench. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be a situation where you bring in a Tchouameni and play Rice in the 8 when you've just spent this much on Havertz plus paying him over 200k a week. I just don't see that happening. And on top of that, you've got a situation where you need to get rid of a Partey. So I just don't. The dynamics within that team, there's just a lot going on in that midfield. I just don't realistically see it happening. I reckon you probably have to sell at least him and Jorginho and Partey, both of them, potentially to bring him in. That's the only way I see that one happening. I think you guys have a lot of midfielders.
Can Arsenal have 4 midfielders that play regularly? Because that's what you're pretty much talking about. 4.
That's
so
exactly
take Tchouameni out, Havertz, Odegaard, Thomas Partey, Rice. Is that not doable?
I think
4 competitions and trying to go as far as you can. Is that not doable?
You'd have to sell Partey. You'd have to sell. I'd probably even say Jorginho. Like, where does he get the game time? Do you know what I mean?
Wait,
so
why would you have take Tchouameni out of the conversation, because I think putting Tchouameni in the conversation makes people think about it too hard. Partey, Rice, Odegaard, and Havertz. Can those 4 midfielders exist at Arsenal and play a good amount of minutes?
But there's always going to be one of them that are going to have to sacrifice for the other ones. In this case, we all know that it's probably actually, we don't know, but more than likely for me, I reckon it's going to be Partey because of his injury prone, because you brought Declan Rice in for such a big fee. Depending on the game, if you're looking to be a bit more defensive, then it may be Havertz that's going to be sacrificed and you put Partey in with Rice, or you could do Tchouameni and Rice. But the whole point of not bringing Tchouameni in, and like everyone is saying, is because you're going to be paying such a large fee for Tchouameni to have a player he's not similar to Rice as in the way that he plays, but similar as in they're both attributes are best defensively, and so you're going to be taking away your attacking part of the team. And it may work in some games, but in most other games you're going to need another player in there that's a bit more creative and a bit more attacking, has more attacking sense. So we're not saying that no, Tchouameni shouldn't go Arsenal. It just doesn't make sense for him to go Arsenal. And if he does go Arsenal, you're only going to be affecting your team and just making it's just not going to work properly.
I differ. I think it does. I think the argument that Partey all of a sudden is the one that's going to get dropped because of the fee, I think is madness, because up until his blunder towards the end of the season, the whole argument was he was the best DM in the Prem. Him and Casemiro were battling out with Rodri. Declan Rice wasn't in the conversation. So Declan Rice comes in, it strengthens the squad. But I think Partey still, as a defensive midfielder, from what Arteta wants, I think Partey is much more comfortable in the ball than a Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice, we've seen, even at West Ham, he's actually started to play further forward. I think he's actually going to potentially play in that 8 in where Xhaka does. And I think if you were to swap a Partey out for a Tchouameni, I think that 5 midfielders for 3 positions is fine. I think that's what you want. If you look at it, apart from that, what midfielders have they got?
It's crazy.
That's 2 players to cover. That's 2 players on the bench that will cover the 3 that start.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I told you guys that like Gundogan, KDB, and Bernardo Silva all kind of played around 30 games last season for Man City, that's 3 players. Like, I really do think that Arsenal can do 4 top midfielders that share minutes for 4 competitions. Will it be Tchouameni? I'm not sure, because like you would have to move on Thomas Partey. But this is what everybody has said Arsenal need. They need a strong squad with top players in it. So I don't really understand, like, why all of a sudden, because you add Tchouameni in there, it's like it doesn't make sense. It does. He would get more than enough playing time. Thomas Partey is not going to not play next season. He's definitely going to play. And I just read something from Declan Rice saying that he does want to play more of a box-to-box role. So I think you spend 100 million on a player that's going to play multiple positions anyway. I think Declan Rice is going to play 8 and 6, depending on what we want to do. But yeah, this is what Arsenal are supposed to be doing, right?
Last season, sorry, Jess, how many midfielders did Arsenal have? I'm pretty sure it was probably about 5 anyway. Because Xhaka's left, and we're talking about Partey leaving. That's 2 midfielders. So if Havertz comes in and Declan Rice, and what wasn't it Lokonga as well? That was coming in certain games.
Lokonga, El Neni was there, like
these players just won't be available. I think.
Oh, can I just say, go on, JJ. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying, I think Tchouameni is more similar to Partey than Declan Rice is to Partey, if that makes sense. So I think if Partey leaves, I think Tchouameni can do the role that Partey did in terms of picking up the ball from deep, not really going too gung-ho in terms of possession. I think he can do that. He showed he could do it in the World Cup, right? I think Declan Rice is more suited and actually has got his move on the back of actually being more of an advanced midfielder as opposed to being that deep line kind of midfielder that he was when he came through at West Ham. So for me,
Jerry, let's look at a lineup then. So let's say they brought in Tchouameni and he played as a 6, and then you got Declan Rice playing in the 8. Yeah. That means naturally Havertz drops to the bench. Now, when it comes to
because we're assuming he'll play midfield, right? But Havertz has shown that he can play on the left. He's played on the right. He's played up front. He's one of those players that a lot, even you as a Chelsea fan, will tell me you don't even know his position, right? So maybe Arteta sees him as someone that, you know what? If Gabriel Jesus is injured, right? I mean, we can rotate them, right? But if he's injured or if he's not available, I can play Havertz then, still play
as a 9,
role, because they're similar in terms of what they can offer. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but they're similar.
I get that. But what I'm doing, I'm going off the words that Mikel actually used. Like in his when they signed Havertz, he did say like he's going to bring some strength to our midfield, and on their website, he's actually down as a midfielder. So let's say he's playing as a left centre mid, right? That means behind him you're going to have Smith Rowe, and then you've also got Vieira as well, who I believe plays in that role. That's why I'm looking at it like that's a lot. I get it's a squad. You need a lot of players, but that's literally like 3 players for one position. I know Odegaard, he might come off certain games and you maybe can play, I don't know, Vieira on that side, for example. But let's be real, like Arsenal are going to have, I know they were predictable last season, but it's going to be the same players that are getting tinkered, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel like it's very bloated. I'm not saying that they can't bring in too many, but I'm just looking at who they actually have and the positions that they're going to play in.
Do you think
quite bloated?
Do you think Vieira and Emil Smith Rowe have a future at Arsenal? That's the question.
Smith Rowe, I mean, Smith Rowe, they said he's got a future. They said he's got a future. Apparently,
they're going to be cup players. Like they're going to be the guys that are playing in the Carabao Cup. Like I think Declan Rice, Odegaard, and Kai Havertz are going to play a big role in those 8 positions. Declan Rice can sometimes play in the 6. Maybe we'll play a double pivot sometimes. You don't know. But like, I think Vieira and ESR, like even though they're good players and they have a future, like in the short term, long term, like we just don't know. But those main 3, Odegaard, Kai Havertz, and Declan Rice, I don't understand why there's not a world where all 3 of them can exist within this team and play a lot of minutes with 4 competitions.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. I'm just looking at it about ESR, Vieira, all these guys that are kind of just in the back. Do you know what I mean?
I think for me, in my opinion, I think one of those would have to go and leave in that case, because they were playing, like someone's going to play, obviously, it's not going to get any game time. But if we're looking at it, Vieira didn't really play that many games. I know he came off the bench. If you replace that with even as Jorginho, when Jorginho comes in or whatever, I think that they kind of make up for them. The minutes make up themselves in that case. So whether it happens, obviously, I'm not sure. But I think Tchouameni, he could look at that and be like, you know what? At Real Madrid, I might not be playing, but if I come to Arsenal and I'm guaranteed game time, I can emulate the likes of a Vieira, and there's that storyline that can, emerge for a Tchouameni, especially him being quite young as well. So,
Tchouameni's not coming to be on the bench. They're definitely starting him. They're definitely starting him.
He would be a starter.
Mm.
So.